Good day, everyone, and a warm welcome to this webinar on an integrated approach to leveraging data. Before we get started, I'd like to give some organizational remarks. My name is Lisette Buist. I'm a project manager at Solarplaza and your host for today's webinar. We have 4 expert speakers lined up on the back end that are very eager to get started. So without any further hesitation, I'm going to continue with the organizational update. So firstly, for those of you who don't know Solarplaza, we're a global events organizer with a mission to positively impact the world by accelerating the sustainable energy transition. We've hosted numerous events around the globe. We're based from Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and we have a network of over 60,000 PV professionals globally joining us at those occasions. Then a short organizational note as well that you might have seen come by in your email box. Unfortunately, as this webinar is part of the run-up to Solar Asset Management North America, our yearly event in North America, we had to postpone this to spring 2022. We're going to keep you posted on the exact dates, but we still like to make sure that you mark your calendars already for spring to meet us physically, while in the meantime, we keep you posted on the most important topics via these virtual gatherings like today's webinar. Then in the crisis times of the last period, or let's say the turbulent times that we were in as a company, not being able to host our physical events, we've not sat still. So I just briefly wanted to also highlight that Solarplaza has launched 3 new businesses. First being Solarplaza Consultancy for all your market entry solutions. The second one being the Solarplaza Academy, with more dedicated trainings in the solar space, and the third one being the Solarplaza Foundation, where we aim to also accelerate sustainable energy transition beyond our business-to-business environment that we operate in. So if you're interested in those, please have a look at our website. Then going to today, because of course that's why you're all here, some practical notes before we get started. You can ask all your questions to our panelists in the questions section that you see. This box can also be used for any technical issues you encounter. Our team here at the back end is there to support. And of course, you'll receive the presentation slides and the recordings within the next 1 to 2 days if you have to leave a bit earlier or you still want to review the contents afterwards. So with that, I'd like to actually invite our 4 panelists for today, Regan, Johannes, Andrew, and Vanya, who can now turn on their cameras and microphones. And I would like to pass the floor to our moderator of this panel, Vanya, who will take us through this topic of an integrated approach to leveraging data. So thank you all for joining and have a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Lisette. It's a real pleasure to be with you guys today and to moderate this panel. We are having a really fantastic, diverse panel, and I personally am really excited to hear everybody's different perspective on SCADA and how we can use it to optimize the solar assets. With this, I will let Ioannis maybe start and share with us how we can get from the sensors to the cloud from the SCADA platform point of view.
Thank you, Vanya. Thank you, Lisette, for the chance to discuss this topic today. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Andrew Matrakis, and I'm a senior product manager within Access, which is a company that we provide SCADA control and central monitoring and management solutions for solar plants, storage, energy storage, and wind farms. And we have around 24 gigawatts under management worldwide. We are active in all 4 continents, so from North America, Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. And I will take this opportunity today to discuss what we believe to be this integrated approach for the SCADA systems and how this can help all the stakeholders, how this can help the OEMs, the asset managers, and the owners. If you can bring up a small slide that I have, so as to have a perspective of what we think this integrated system must do. As you see, there are several ingredients there, and starting from the bottom, where we have the field equipment, which is everything that it is actually installed on site. So we have the field SCADA and the plant SCADA, which is the devices that actually connect to the end devices of the asset, all the inverters, the trackers, the sensors, and everything, and collect data and also send commands for control. There is the power plant controller together with the RTU that is responsible for the interface with the grid operator and get commands and provide feedback back to the grid operator. This is the job of the RTU and the power plant controller that actually implement those commands, those set points from the grid operator and control the asset to provide all the services. All those data that are collected on site are then sent through a secure network with all the cybersecurity mandates to a central location, the CMS, the Central Management Platform, which is there to present all the gathered information in a uniform way, in a platform that can be used again by the O&M to do the job, and the asset managers and the owners. And you can build several intelligence on this platform and have the asset performance management that provides several analytics and the reports, artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually get some information, actionable information from all the ocean of data that is collected. And then we have another very important part here, which is the market integration platform, which is there to integrate the actual asset with the market. It helps this integration by getting all the forecasts, by actually see what is in the market, what is the pricing, and have the dispatching of the assets in order to maximize the value. So with this approach, we get, as we say, from the sensor, from the small sensor that is located on site, up to the cloud system and to the market. And we will have a lot of chance during our discussion to go in more details. And I want to pass the microphone to the next.
Thank you very much, Ioannis. This was really very helpful. And then from the world of the O&M, Regan is gonna present a slightly different perspective about how we get the data from the sensors to the cloud.
Hey, Vanya, and good day to everybody watching. Excited to be here and a great group to be able to talk about this subject. We have the pleasure of actually operating a site with InExcess to be able to hear from Jonas what that sheet or that description was very useful. I think even just from a basic understanding. Great job, Jonas. My name is Regan Moan. I'm the Business Development Manager of Solve. And just recently, we were purchased by a private equity firm, American Securities, and they carved out Swinnerton Renewable Energy's EPC, as well as the purchase of Solve, and we will be named Solve Energy moving forward, providing both EPC and O&M. I've been with Solve now for almost 7 years. Started out currently we were managing back then about 400 megawatts, and by the end of this year, we'll have 10 gigawatts under management, in addition to another 1.5 gigs of wind, where we provide monitoring, controls, and dispatch. And one of the cornerstone pieces of how we've expanded and being able to scale to that point is all about data. So that's why I'm excited to be able to talk about that today. I think there's going to be a few points we'll directly address and talk through, but to be able to have the data needed to not only have eyes on a site from operations and control center perspective, but also just from a data analytics and giving those tools to technicians on site to be able to determine what's going on with the site, and then interacting with our clients and being on the same page with them. So looking forward to the rest of the panel, Vanya, and I think it's going to be a great topic.
Thank you very much, Regan. Yes, again, excited to talk to all of you. Andrew, maybe you can bring us in summary the perspective of the asset owners and how do we turn all of this great SCADA into actually something which impacts the bottom line and the performance of the assets.
Sure thing. Yeah, so I guess hi everyone, I'm Andrew Dean. I'm joining you from the United Kingdom today, despite the Canadian accent. This is where I'm based. So representing Lightsource VP. So for those of you who are maybe a little less familiar with Lightsource, began its life about a decade ago as primarily a UK-focused developer of solar projects, but we've been on quite an evolution since then. Personally, I've been with Lightsource for almost 4 years, since 2018. That was around the time that we began our joint venture with our partner BP. And today we've expanded well beyond just UK development. So I typically describe us as a sort of fully integrated, which I guess is topical for today, fully integrated solar company, in that we develop the assets, but we're also an owner, as Vanya said, of those operational assets. But in addition, we have an asset management services business, and within the UK, we're one of the sort of major O&M contractors. So there's sort of many different levels of what we do. Personally, I head up our global performance and monitoring team. So, I guess, as I said, we have the owner, the asset manager, and the O&M contractors all within Lightsource. And I'm mostly concerned with providing not just accurate data, but also actionable performance insights to each level of the business. And that could be anything as simple as a ticket to the O&M team to say you have to go out to site to check out this inverter because it's not responding, or as complex as a business case to say we need to retrofit all of the string inverters on this site. And all of that starts with having reliable data on our fleet of sites. So today we've got 2.2 gigawatts under management. It'll be about 2.5 by the end of the year, and if all goes well, it'll be over 4 by the end of 2022. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about how we can continue to provide the service levels today and those insights, but on a completely different scale than we are today. So I think in the world of the past, maybe fiddling with spreadsheets, it might have worked. It certainly doesn't cut it at a multi-gigawatt scale across multiple continents with all that complexity. So happy to share some of the thoughts that we've had. We're on this digitalization journey to improve our data and some of the tools that we put at the disposal of our employees.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Andrew. And let me present myself. I'm Vanya Masrov, and I'm the O&M lead from the Goldman Sachs Asset Management team, supporting our amazing asset managers in their work to optimize the performance of the Goldman Sachs operating fleet. So I'm personally really looking forward to hearing the experience and the advice of our panelists and to see how they can impact our everyday business. So with this, let's start maybe discussing some of the topics. Before that, maybe we can also ask our amazing audience about their opinion of where they are in their optimization, in their use of SCADA to work better and to reach the integrated approach. Thank you very much. So with this, I will start my questions. Ioannis, maybe you can start again and let us know. Like we are hearing a lot of things about data quality, good data, and reliable data. How can we use it? How we can advance our analytics with it? But what is actually a high quality data set, and how can we get it?
Yes, yes, Vanya, this is a very good question. From my point of view, good data quality is data that are accurate, they are relevant, they are complete, they are homogeneous across the portfolio, and of course, they are bankable. So you can actually use them to create your key performance indicators, and you can make actionable decisions, as Andrew said before. In order to have a good data quality, we must start from the sensor. So this is the first point, that the data are actually generated. So it is very important, the selection of the sensors that you are going to install on site. How many, in which locations, how you maintain them. And Regan can speak of it. It's very important. Have 10 granometers on site, and if they are full of dust, all of them are just useless. And then you try, to have analytics on top of that to clear the data that should be clean in the first place. So we must all pay a lot of attention on where the actual data are generated. And then it comes the system, the SCADA system that you have on site. And what is the communication between all the sensors, the inverters, the trackers with the SCADA system? Is it reliable? Or you have so much noise that instead of getting a sample per second, you get a sample every 5 minutes. And then you average out and you get nonsense data out of it. And then how you have programmed the SCADA system on site. Does the SCADA system perform the right sampling? This science is an old science. DSP, digital signal processing, to be honest, was my master degree at the Imperial College 25 years ago. It was then that it was created. Now it's very old science. The only thing you have to do is just to apply it correctly. And if you do it correctly, you have correct sampling rate, correct average, you have all the data, and also you have to perform some basic principles of cleansing the data at source. So you can get rid of outliers, get rid of noise, etc. And this has to be done at the samples level. Then, of course, we can have a platform on top at the cloud system and do some curation. But my opinion is that the first data set is very important. Otherwise, you have garbage in, garbage out, and you try to work with cleaning the garbages, which is not the best case. If you invest some money when you build the site to have a good system and you have a good O&M, I think the problem of clean data and good quality data is solved at the source. And of course, there is the way that you transmit all this data. You must have the correct cyber security in place to have a secure transfer of data to the cloud. If you do all of that, which is not rocket science, it's just a good selection of equipment and good maintenance of it, I think you can end up with a good quality data. And if you have standardized at what you install on site, then you don't have to care among the different sites you have. You can be sure that you have a standard quality of data.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ioannis. This was really great. Regan, I heard a lot of the basis for good data are actually coming from the sites, from construction through O&M and let's say the cleaning of pyranometers to setting the SCADA correctly. So what is the role of the O&M in getting the good quality data, and what are the risks associated with not having actually good, reliable data?
Yeah, no, great question. And I like some of the key points that Ioannis mentioned, being able to have accurate, relevant, actionable information. And that's what we need. I mentioned earlier about data was a cornerstone of how we built our team and our company back 5-7 years ago, allowing our technicians to truly understand how the site is performing. All came from data. It was a great point Andrew said earlier about, you're no longer able to manage these sites with spreadsheets or, all the CSV files. Everything needs to be real time, what's happening, and being able to have a web platform that you're able to see how the site is performing is key in our success. When we have the ability to, on a daily basis or a real-time basis, have our technicians go in and see how the plant is running. Need to be able to understand all the weather conditions, backup module temperature within the inverter, albedo sensors, POA, GHIs, all of that information, and then you roll into all the data sensors coming from the tracker, from the inverter, from the substation. At our operations and control center, we're literally pulling in over 1 million tags every 5 seconds into our ops center, and to be able to have good sensors like Jonas was talking about earlier is vital, but then being able to have a clean data set is crucial, in that there are risks associated to it, from the basics of monthly key performance indicators. Are we accurately giving our clients the information that how did the plant perform from production to work order issues or outages, because they're reporting not only internally but to their banks and to their tax equity investors that information has to be accurate. Availability guarantees, if we're signing up for an availability guarantee, that data that we pull, especially on the production side, needs to be accurate. But if we're not seeing whether or not inverters are not producing at their optimum, or that we are missing tracker alignments, and we need to be able to fix that and see it and do action on it, is a key play in ensuring that our availability guarantees are upheld. And then the other aspect with these NERC sites, the data that we use to be able to report back to the balancing authorities, the ISOs, the QSEs, if we don't, then there are potential fines involved with all the NERC 693 protocols, or even to Jonas's point earlier, the cybersecurity or the SIP protocols. Data is everything, and we need to be able to understand it. We need to be able to look at it and calculate the same answer in different methods, so that we truly have a good data set and we can accurately say that there is an issue going on, and if there is, then how do we react to it? At what point do we have the different type of response guarantees to, if it's a diode out on a module, that can wait, right? We are more concerned if something happens at the inverter level, and we want to be able to then fine tune trackers, and then we address all the different modules over the course. But it's all about data. And I've been saying it for the last 7 years, to be able to understand data and have a in-house performance analytics team, and then being on the same page with our owners and clients, I think is crucial in managing these large utility assets. But to Andrew's point earlier, how do you take a look at a smaller site, a 500 kW project that is just as important to a particular client as is a 400 megawatt site? And to be able to balance that, you need to be able to have good, accurate data. You need to be able to have the alarms, the alerts set in your OCC, and our technicians need to be able to have visibility of that data to keep those sites up and running. I don't care if it's a 400, 500 kW rooftop or a 400 megawatt ground mount system. Data needs to be there to keep pushing the boundaries of production and keeping our clients happy.
Absolutely. But good data is nice. But Andrew, how do we go from translating the good data into actual improvements on the site performance and ultimately the financial returns of projects?
Well, we could probably run an entire webinar on this one, completely separate. But I guess, I will caveat this response by saying we're probably on the very active end of the scale when it comes to owners. It probably drives, so we do work with Sol, we work with Regan's team on one of our sites. Probably drives a little bit crazy because we're very much in the detail. But I think maybe it's helpful if I share my mental framework for this. And I kind of divide the world into sort of 3 focus areas. So there's, assuming you have good data, you can focus on maximizing availability. So this is rather binary. Is the component on and available to produce, or it's not? Then there's the sort of maximizing yield. And this is about, once everything's available, is the conversion of energy from the face of the PV modules to my grid connection as efficient as it could be? And then the last area is actually, okay, based on whatever happens on site, I get a certain amount of kilowatt hours that I'm able to produce. How am I maximizing the revenue for every single kilowatt hour? So depending on which one of those 3 you're looking at, I think the approach that we take is slightly different. So on the availability front, it's really just about 2 things primarily. It's about speed to identify, first of all, that you have a problem. And that comes back to the SCADA system, having the right, we spent a lot of time working with Yannis's team, as we do use the in-access platform, configuring alarms and alerts so that they suit our specific needs, so that we know the minute something goes off, and we can start that whole process that turns into a truck roll and someone going to site. And then I think from that point on, it's about good operational practice. I won't go into too much detail about that because it's not really the focus of this, but I think we've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we're getting the data from the monitoring system into the hands of the engineers so that it can be triaged, it can be prioritized, and you can get someone out to site very quickly. And that's about having an up-to-date, real-time view, as Regan said, of availability across all your sites. On the yield side, that's where things get really interesting, because you have to be looking at data over a time series to start realizing things like, you have inverters that are performing maybe 2 to 3% below where the peers are, doing the outlier analysis, as Yanis said. You also need to have quite a lot of data to figure out that you have a panel degradation problem. And that's where I would say we're currently on the journey. I feel very comfortable with the availability. We're doing everything that we can. We're now focusing on, okay, how do I get that marginal improvement? And we're talking it's 0.5% of PR or 1% of PR or 1.5%. But that translates into some serious revenue for our clients and for ourselves as a company. So I'd say that's where we're currently investing. And we're always working with the market to see what's out there, who's coming up with some more innovative data techniques that can help us, identify underperformance and yield issues before they've gone on for too long and we've lost a bunch of money. And just briefly on the last point, I guess, around revenue, I think this is kind of the new frontier, because in the old world, what you produced, at least where you had subsidies in place, you received a fixed amount of money for. It didn't really matter. You always knew at the end of the day what your revenue per kilowatt hour was going to be primarily. Now we're getting into a world of battery storage. We're getting into a world of some interesting PPA structures. We're getting into a world where sites actually have market exposure. And there's going to be a whole lot of more drive towards real-time decision-making, operational decision-making, to try and influence how much money you're getting for every kilowatt hour and maximizing that. So, I know you don't have a huge number of insights to provide today on that, because I think that's the world that we're just moving into, but it's definitely there on the horizon. I think it goes back to what Yanis said, is about trying to integrate real-time market signals, forecasts into your decision-making. And kind of that's the exciting new frontier, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. These are certainly great ideas about how to optimize revenue based on the data we receive. But if we're talking about optimization, I think we should look at rather the EBITDA point rather than the revenue alone. So I should ask, is there actually impact of reliable SCADA on the OPEX too? Regan, maybe you can give us a little bit of insight. Is there actually consideration about SCADA reliability when pricing O&M services?
Absolutely, yeah. Having bad data or unreliable data is driving a car at 70 miles per hour and you got a muddy windshield and you can't get it clean, and you're trying to drive it and wondering what you missed. Did I miss a turn? Did I miss the car in front of me? Did I miss the pothole, or am I driving right down the middle of the lane and everything's fine, which happens when you have great data. When you have bad data or bad SCADA platforms, or even taking on older sites that maybe didn't have a robust platform that getting the type of data you need to be actionable, it does affect the way even that we price projects. If we're proposing on an older project and the data isn't there, then are we having to send technicians out to a site to troubleshoot every time, compared to nowadays, even on a 20, 40 megawatt site, you don't need to staff it 100% of the time. And you could do some troubleshooting and fixing from your office in Greece or London or San Diego, where we're all sitting, instead of having to roll a truck. And we all know that that's where the cost starts to increase, that if we have to roll trucks, then we're either charging as a extra work or non-covered service. And with that bad data, we have to take that into account, especially on some of the older sites. And I think what we're seeing in the utility space now, and even in the distributed generation space, that there are competent SCADA platforms out there, and the technology that's used, whether it's from the tracker or from the inverter, that we're able to do those types of troubleshooting, and we're able to do either resets or identify when a problem is potentially on the horizon. Andrew made a great point. If you have underperforming inverters relative to skid mates, what's going on there? Is there a temperature sensor that is indicating maybe a fan is out or a filter needs to be cleaned? So let's go ahead and be actionable on that, meaning get out there and fix it before we have a detonation of an inverter. So in that way, we're optimizing that production. But bad data, taking a look at multiple sites. A lot of our clients have projects that they bought portfolios, and maybe some of their sites don't have the robust SCADA platform, and the type of reporting that they get on a monthly basis looks different from one site to the other. And there is an investment, a CapEx investment, to be able to overhaul the SCADA platform to get maybe reporting up to speed or comparable to the others. But if you have an old, Draker DAS can on site and you can't get the data needed even just to perform KPIs, you have issues there, and then you're sending more truck rolls to be able to understand what's going on with the site. So for sure, Vanya, we take that into account. What kind of SCADA platform is being used, how we're able to integrate that, how we're able to overlay our main platform so that we can be scalable within our operations and control center and set the alerts and the alarms so that we can react to, no matter if it's a 500 kW site or a 400 megawatt site. I'll go back to that. Those alerts and issues are just important to every one of those clients, and we need to be able to react to it. So it is very important. It does affect your typical OpEx because of the truck rolls and reducing those numbers.
Okay, now I understand why you are asking all these questions when I ask for pricing. It's great to hear that it does serve to get an actual pricing on what we are using. So in our poll, we saw that 50% of our audience actually doesn't have a unified platform and doesn't seem to have at least started integrating their platforms. So Andrew, can you tell us a little bit more about what are the challenges of having several platforms and systems, especially with a growing diverse portfolio of assets?
Sure, happy to share mine. It sounds like 50% of people on this call could also give me a longer list. But I think the two primary challenges that I have encountered personally and we've encountered at Lightsource, one is smaller than the other. I guess we'll start with the small one, and it's more of a matter of usability and duplicated effort. So if you think, picture yourself as being a monitoring analyst, you've got all your sites that you need to be monitoring. You want to have one platform that you're using. You don't want to be flipping between different screens because you've got in access on one screen or GPM on another. So it feels relatively minor there, but there's also an amount of configuration that at least we would do when we start using a monitoring platform where you've got everything exactly the way that you want, all the alarms are coming in, all the data is coming in the way that you want. And then all of a sudden you need to kind of start from scratch if you have another platform that you're using. So it's a small inefficiency, but as you continue to scale up, that small inefficiency becomes greater and greater. I think the second and probably more significant issue in my mind is having disparate sources of data. So I think one of the things that's very, very important to me, especially from an ownership perspective, is having one source of truth. And if I have data that's being housed across multiple different platforms and I'm trying to do one consistent analysis across every single site, it becomes very, very difficult. So to bring that to life, it's anything from calculation of PRs to availability, underperformance analysis, reporting. We want this to be as standard and automated as possible. Actually, over the last 12 months, just to give some tangible examples of what we've done to address this. We've invested fairly heavily to build a Lightsource BP data warehouse or sort of data lake, as we call it. So this is working with Microsoft Azure and Snowflake. So as of right now, we're just launching it. We've got all of it's probably not as much data as Regan has, but 1.9 billion data flows coming into the data lake from all of our sites around the world. And we're organizing that in a standard way. And we can then build intelligence layers on top, whether that's just a simple connection with Power BI or another dashboarding tool or something more complex. And for us, that's kind of taking back control of the data and putting it in one place so that we don't have people in different areas of the world with different data sets, because it just sort of starts to cause chaos after that point. And has the added benefit of taking all of the things that would traditionally sit within the sort of SCADA realm, and you're able to start mixing that data with other non-SCADA parameters. So you can bring in things like market prices or energy forecasts or even field reports, things like that. And again, it's all in one place, and you can be confident that's your source of truth.
Fantastic, thank you. Ioannis, we heard Andrew's point of view about the challenges of having different systems and the advantages of having one common platform. From your point of view, from the point of view of the SCADA provider, how the combination of SCADA, the control, and the market integration under a single system can actually provide value to the owners?
Yes, Andrew has already said, and Regan, how important all the good data, having good data, and what are the actual savings in terms of OPEX, etc., which I cannot disagree. I definitely agree. But I want also to focus on what Andrew touched upon earlier, that how the market integration can actually generate new revenue streams for the owner and can enhance the value of the asset. And this can be done by real-time decision making. So you can actually have control, and you have both ingredients in one place. You have the market interface that can get the market signals and understand the market pricing, and you also have the control that is able to have all the dispatching, and it can do the dispatching. So you can actually follow the market pricing. You can stop production if you have negative market pricing. The addition of battery storage, there are lots of new opportunities. So you can select what you want to do with your energy. You can export to the grid. You can charge your batteries and export later. You can do the energy shifting. You can do the peak saving. You can do all these new, let's say, services that can actually add a lot of new revenue streams. And this can also be enhanced with all the data that we have there. So we now have machine learning algorithms that they try to optimize the forecast, the energy forecast that we receive with the integration with the third-party providers. So we have third-party providers that they give us the day ahead forecast, and we run some machine learning algorithms so as to optimize the short-term forecast. And with this short-term forecast and the actual market price, you can do the same with the market price. So you can have some algorithms that try to predict in short term what would be the market price in the next hour or two. So you can actually change the bids, adjust your bids to optimize the revenues there. Imagine that you can also use this with technologies like sky cameras that can see the sky and see the clouds and predict what will be the irradiance in 15 minutes, in half an hour. So this gives you new ways to have a better short-term forecasting of your energy and be produced in the next minutes or half an hour or an hour. Another very important advantage is that we actually, as having the SCADA system there, we also know the actual availability of the site. So you may have a forecast that at 2 o'clock you will produce 100 megawatt hours, but if half of the inverters are off, you can produce only half of it. And the SCADA system knows that. So these can be combined and have a new bid in the market, for example, all these real-time decisions that we are going to see more and more in the future. And all of that, of course, not to mention that you can have other services, ancillary services from the grid, for the grid, such as frequency response, voltage support, etc., that can add new revenue streams apart from the actual energy that you sell. And I want to close this section by saying that this combination, if you see all these functionality in a portfolio of assets, you can have a virtual power plant. So you can have a VPP, a virtual power plant, that is comprised of solar, wind, and batteries, and it can be 2 gigawatts that actually operate like a conventional thermal plant, for example. And you have this system that you can make the production, the output of this system reliable. And this is, I think, very, very important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ioannis. Regan, we have heard the asset owners and the SCADA perspective, but how about the O&M providers? We all know that the O&M has a very, very limited say in the selection of the O&M, of the SCADA, early in the process. So is it possible at all for the O&M to manage to integrate the assets on a single platform, or do you just have to work with all of the different platforms the client chooses?
No, it's a great point. And yes, it is possible to be able to just operate on one platform. And for a national O&M provider overseeing over 250 sites and close to 35 different NERC sites, it was a couple of years ago that our in-house network engineering team and our software developers realized that we need to be able to have a product that sat as an umbrella software overseeing any type of SCADA platform. It would be helpful. Developers and owners do call, and we do discuss not only technology recommendations in different parts of the country, but also SCADA platforms. And there are providers out there that, when you work with them over the course of the last couple of years and understand the connectivity and the field device data points that are needed to come into our operations and control center, we've been using Ignition, which eliminates the need for third-party monitoring services. I think third-party monitoring platforms are still crucial in clients' ability to be able to create their own reporting and do their own types of analytics. But for the scalability factor for Solve has been utilizing one particular software platform and integrate any type of data coming from the different SCADA platforms out there. That's the only way that we've been able to scale as much as we have been. We also use that data coming into our Ignition platform for our different KPI reportings as well. So there's a dual use of that. And Jonas made another great point about new revenue streams. When you have the ability to bring in a wind portfolio or a BESS opportunity and still use that same umbrella platform, it opens up the door to be able to provide monitoring, controls, and dispatch, from where we're at here in San Diego to a wind farm in Peru or in India or anywhere in the world. Because we're bringing that data in, we're able to provide feedback and dispatch since we're open 24/7. But for us, it was the right way to go, the right decision, in my opinion, because if you're trying to look at the different SCADA HMIs or third-party monitoring from a dispatcher sitting in the control center, you're going to miss things. If you lost the comms on a particular site because a modem went down and you're using an old Locust or DEC type system or other platforms that you're constantly changing screens to be able to see how the plants are working. For us to be able to go to that one centralized software, pull all the data from all the different SCADA platforms, and then set the alerts and alarms and pull all your KPIs off that data stream has been, again, the cornerstone of how we're able to grow and keep adding. I think over the next 2 years, we're finalizing another 3 to 4 gigawatts of agreements right now. So we'll be sitting at 14, 15 gigawatts, and there's a few competitors out there that talk about what they've done with data recently and how to be able to see down to a module level, and we've been doing that for 3 years, to be able to have a software development team in-house, a SCADA development, network engineers in-house, and then performance engineers who are all providing that input of how we want to be able to see data, and then our dispatchers saying, here's what we need to be able to be effective operations and control center employees and react when some issues occur. That's the only way that we found was the most viable path, was to be able to have that one platform pulling in all different type of SCADA.
Okay, so it seems like everybody's trying to integrate their portfolios onto one platform. I have a question for Andrew, but also for our audience. Would you say that today you are also trying to integrate, to have a single integrated data approach across the value chain, working with your asset managers, if you have third-party O&M, any other contractors and service providers?
I guess the short answer is partially, I suppose. So as I mentioned before, we do have in-house O&M sites that are managed by our in-house O&M, in-house asset management, and we are the owner of the site. So I mean, that's a dream from my perspective, because we can sort of mandate, and we're all using the same system, so when we speak to each other, we're all talking sort of the same language, if I can put it that way. But we also use many third-party O&M providers, and we work with third-party asset managers, and that is honestly today we don't have one integrated system, and it does cause some friction. I think it can be incredibly frustrating when you pick up the phone and you say, "Hey, O&M contractor, I can see that inverter 4 is not working," and then they go, "Oh, inverter 4 looks right to me. Everything seems fine." And actually, it turns out that you've just, during the configuration stages, because you're using two different systems, the nomenclature got mixed up, and actually you're talking about two different inverters. That's a very simplified example, but it's something that does actually happen. So, I mean, I don't think we're ever going to get into a world where everyone's using the same systems, obviously. But I think we could probably get a little bit smarter about how we integrate between different platforms so that less of those sort of confusions occur.
And Regan, as an O&M provider, do you also think that it is important that asset managers and owners are looking at the exact same monitoring platform, or does the mix and match model work for you?
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's got to be communication in the beginning. Working with Lightsource and Andrew and his team to be able to push the boundaries of how we're looking at data, and understanding that if we are looking at it from two different platforms, I think that's okay. We just got to make sure that we're on the same page, especially to your point, Andrew, about are the tags right? Are we doing ensuring once a site is coming to substantial completion and we're doing all the tests and ensuring that that particular inverter reflects the same within our platform and their platform, so that we don't have those situations that owner calls us up and says, "Hey, what's going on with inverter 4? We pull it up and says inverter 4 is fine, but inverter 7 looks like it's out. To be able to be on that same page, I think, is crucial. And we've actually introduced exhibits into our agreements that discuss connectivity and field device alignment, and the need for time prior to COD to ensure we're working with the SCADA provider, we're working with the asset management group, with the client or the third party, and being all on the same page. I think a client working on a different platform is okay in the sense that there may be deeper analytics that they may be doing compared to what we would potentially look at from a preventive maintenance or from a reactive type of scenario, and it pushes us to get better. I can count a number of clients over the last 7 years that the experience in the asset management group, the expertise, the pushing the boundaries of their expectations, what they're looking at has pushed us as a O&M provider, which I think is a very good thing. But you need to be able to have that dialogue, that communication. You need to be able to have the good data, and then once you have that, how do we improve our processes in-house so that we're more aligned with our clients has always been a key focus for us over the last number of years. So I think having two different platforms is fine. The key is being on the same page, and you're doing your data quality checks prior to COD of a project and making sure that you're on the same page. So everything looks right from both platforms, and you're able to speak the same language when there are issues.
And Juan, is how do you make it happen? Like, how do you address? Like, it seems like the O&M, the asset management, wants different view, but on the same, based on the same data, and then we have to address, in some cases, very diverse portfolio from very small CNI, even residential, up to the NERC compliant size, and then, as you mentioned previously, throw a wind farm or two in the maybe a couple of base systems. So how do you address this very, very different portfolios and bring them all on a single platform and give everybody the visibility they need?
Yes, very good question. What we always trying to do, first of all, is to provide the same data to all the stakeholders. So there is a full transparency there. So all of the people can work with the same data set, and there's a clear view of what is happening on site. But the platform itself, the software itself, is very flexible and customizable. So depending on who you are, or depending on the actual requirements of the asset, because as you very correctly said, we can have a small CNI or a utility scale asset of 300 megawatt, or a wind farm or a storage site on the same platform. So there's a very high degree of flexibility and customizability. So each user can configure his own dashboards, his own schematics, his own mimic diagrams, and this can, depending on who you are, you can see eventually the same information in a different way. And then you can build your own formulas on the platform, so you can have your own KPIs depending on who you are, and the reporting as well is very flexible. Of course, there is some highly specialized control functions. So this comes by default with the platform, and we also provide some default views depending on the technology. So for wind and for storage and for solar, there are some default views to help the user navigate. But then there is customizability, so you can actually do whatever you want. From our side as a vendor, we build everything on a common base. So this allows some economies of scale. It is more easily to maintain, to enhance, and provide new features. So it is the same base at the bottom, and then you build the variations of the different technologies and the different market segments on top of that.
So, and we saw it in the poll, like 80-something% of the audience were saying that they are investing, or and I think literally 100% were saying that if they are not investing, they should be. So the data analytics, the performance market, it's certainly growing and has the potential to grow. And we do see a lot of new services, certainly empowered by the development of the monitoring and the SCADA, the systems emerging. But Ioannis, I'm gonna continue with you. So the market is pretty crowded. The analytics, the data analytics and software market, it's really crowded. So are you looking to build some of these capabilities exclusively on your own platform, or are you actually investigating and any partnership and teaming up with other players?
We actually do both. So what we consider as our core competence, our core functionality, of course, we want to build in-house, we want to evolve in-house, we want to keep these capabilities. Of course, the technology is evolving, so we are using all the latest advances, the new cloud tools that are available, data lakes, new machine learning frameworks, all these infrastructure, digital infrastructure actually help us. And we continue to evolve, because you imagine that when we started this business with the first site that we monitored was 15 or 16 years ago, it was a utility scale, but it was 2 megawatt. Now utility scale is 100 times more than that. There was a lot of different tools and different technologies that help us evolve and have an infrastructure that can manage gigawatts, like 24 gigawatts, as I said. So we continually following this, but at the same time, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if we see a good opportunity for integration with another company, with another product, I mean, of another company or partnership, we are very open to explore this. And to be honest, there are a lot of players that we can be complementary. Sometimes it's more like a commercial arrangement that needs to happen, because we can have lots of complementary offers, even with companies that are like, can be considered as competitors, but always there are ways to work together. And we are a small world. This renewable business is a small world.
It is indeed a very, very small, the solar world is that big. So we have a question from the public, and I think as all three of you at a certain point mentioned that you are developing or improving the capability. So you can probably all of you address it. How does the artificial intelligence help with moving from reactive actions to actually predictive actions? And can we have an example of how the use of artificial intelligence help?
Yes, the artificial intelligence can help in several ways. Sometimes it is like, some people, they say artificial intelligence and they mean number crunching, which is two different things. For me, artificial intelligence is more the machine learning. So with machine learning, you can actually, apart from the examples I mentioned before, that you can use machine learning for prediction, for forecast, etc. We are working to use this to actually predict errors of equipment, and focusing mainly on inverters. And this is something that can have very promising results. So based on the history of the past, and with some machine learning, you can actually predict some errors. But the question always remains, even if you predict what will happen next. It's to send a track roll on site based on an indication, it's not very easy. And sometimes I cannot blame anyone that say, okay, it is more expensive to go before that. If it doesn't break, so I will go when it breaks. I can have a quick reaction time. So this is a combination at the end of the day of the technology and the process and the money. So it's simple like that, I think, from my perspective.
And Regan, do you agree? I know we are at time, but a quick final remarks on the predictives.
Yeah. We've been talking about AI or machine learning capabilities probably over the last 2.5 years, Vanya, right? I think you and I first heard it at conferences back a while ago, and it's not as easy as we would think. And granted, I'm not a software developer or performance engineer, but to be able to truly understand how machine learning can improve our ignoring nuisance alarms, to do we see a potential issue that last time we saw it, the inverter detonated, and can that be a red flag? I think we continue to improve on that. I think what Andrew and I spoke to earlier about doing cost or comparisons between skid mates and across the site, and maybe even across different sites continues to evolve. And when you bring in different work orders and maybe the actual fix, to be able to bring in machine learning to then now compare all the different data points and come up with a solution or maybe an action, we continue to improve on that, and to be able to work with companies like InExcess and our clients, and just having again that conversation of here's what we're seeing and how we can improve. I think we're still on the leading edge of saying that predictive analysis is used by every operator, or are we using machine learning to be able to improve what we're doing? Yes, but I think there's a long ways to go as well.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, actually there is one question for you. You just acquired site in Texas in development. So there is a question, is it difficult or easy for you to have integrated it in your existing portfolio?
Sorry, which acquisition was that?
A project in Texas in development.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this is probably an excellent example. So we potentially the one that you're talking about, but if not, this is maybe illustrative of what you're trying to get at there. We just acquired the development portfolio of 7X, which has sites across the US and some in Texas. And with that, we acquired the asset management services for some of those sites as well. And obviously that comes with a site that's already underway, a site that already has the SCADA hardware on site and has a monitoring platform in place. And it is a serious ongoing kind of conversation around, okay, well, we have relative standardization with our own systems, and here's a set of other systems. So is the best approach to basically put in parallel our own monitoring system, and is the benefits that that would drive on this particular site worth the cost that we would probably personally have to invest, because as the owner is completely happy with the systems that they have, and they don't really care that we use something else. So I think it's an excellent case study. I think ultimately this is going to probably be one of those situations where we try and come up with some sort of either an API so that we can extract the data properly, or we just sort of live with the fact that we have to use two different systems in parallel because the economics just don't justify necessarily duplication. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody. I think we are actually a couple of minutes over, but thank you very much. It was a real pleasure talking to all of you. I'm sure our roads are going to cross again, hopefully at the conference next spring. But thank you very much. It was really great talking to all of you, and looking forward to our next meetings.
Thank you, Vanya, for guiding us through this discussion, and thanks Regan, Andrew, and Johannes for sharing your insights. Thanks to the audience for joining, and I hope to see you all physically soon. But until then, stay safe and good luck with everything.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.